soon as I put that finger.
Oh, yeah. Am I starting us, kicking us off today? Is that I guess we're doing like normal, right? Hey, everybody.
Yeah, just by doing that, you already are. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. This is Brian Altunian. Welcome to our weekly podcast called Just Two Dads. With me, as always, my partner in power, Mr. Shawn Francis. Good afternoon, Shawn Francis. How are you, my friend?
Good afternoon, Brian Altunian. I am blessed and thankful, man. It's going to be a great day. Has been so far.
We have a lot. You have a lot to cover today. I'm excited about this. I was thinking about this. You know, I was going over our last couple of episodes, and then I listened to them on podcasts. So for those of you who catch us live on Facebook Live as we do this, thank you and welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads.
Hello, Robert.
Shawn and I. Says Robert. Of course, Robert is there. Robert Moorhead, Shawn's schoolhood friend, age friend, childhood school friend,
schoolmate,
and our producer extraordinaire, our man who puts all of our packaging, our marketing, our technical stuff together, Mr. Shawn Hall, who's in Hawaii. Love you, Shawn Hall. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
I was listening to the podcast. So our podcast is now available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on other streaming platforms, which is amazing. And I think that we're so new at this, and eventually we're going to stop saying how new we are at this. But we're learning new things every day. We generally have some sort of technical issue that comes up. Hasn't happened yet. I'm knocking on wood because the day is young. But I was listening to our podcast with our friend Adam Hancock from last week. And first of all, that was just an amazing experience. But I sometimes forget how people, when they listen, they don't have the benefit of seeing our faces. So you and I have to be thinking about that, conscious of those who are catching us on podcast audio. So hopefully we'll try to describe what we're seeing here. So sometimes I'll be looking at myself as you're talking. I'll be like, oh, my collar looks like it's a little bit off, and I'll make adjustments and I'll do stuff I touch my face way too much in this time of COVID. Definitely touch my face way too much. And then I think, well, people who are listening to us, they don't know that I'm touching my face. So all I keep thinking about is Robert criticizing my face too much. But
he keeps us on the straight and narrow.
He definitely does. Robert points out a lot of times, in the States, we use the term kids, like we talk about our children as our kids. And in other parts of the world, that's not an acceptable description. We should call them our children. So we try to be conscious of it just to be respectful to Robert. And then the other day I was listening to, I remember who our guest was, but we said kids quite a bit that day. Anyways, Robert will try to be conscious of that. Anyways, we have an awesome show. We did not have a guest this week because there's so much going on in the world and in our world. And tonight we have a very special event that we want to talk about. We started this as a conversation between Shawn and I, literally just two dads talking about our experiences with our children who have special needs issues, and how the work that we do in our financial services work, how that impacts our family and the families that we know in the special needs communities. And what's evolved from that initial couple of conversations with just the two of us is expanding our village and our network of people. And we've had some absolutely amazing guests on. And I hate to say this, Shawn, and because this is kind of my thing, but I'm kind of in love with all of them. Like, I love every single person that we've had on the show. Like, it's a new connection, right? A meaningful connection that really I'm never going to forget. And as much opportunity as we can to create additional content with these folks, we're going to do that because their care for their world and for our world is so significant. And you in particular have some great stuff going on this month over the last 30 days. I would definitely want to talk to you about that. And I just want to kick the show off by saying that we're just going back to our original grounding and remind folks why we're doing this and the things that are important to us and that we think are important to our community. And hopefully you get value out of the things that we share today, that we share tonight and ongoingly. It's just another chance to get regrounded into what we're doing and why we do this, and And again, hopefully we're taking it to the next level. So anyways, that's just
Most
sort of my way
definitely.
of starting the show. I love doing this, and I love doing this with you. And just for folks to know that Shawn and I have conversations on the phone, and we say to each other, why are we having this conversation on the phone and not doing this on camera?
On
Because
the show, right.
our daily conversations turn into be like,
Yes.
this is a subject matter that we should be talking about.
And that's what this really is. This is just about the daily conversations that parents have, generally speaking, that dads have, that don't usually take place in public, or they don't talk about unless maybe you're in somebody's barbershop. But even then, there's some kind of facade that takes place because men are supposed to reveal only but so much and have a tough exterior. And that's kind of what today's show is about, which is pulling the curtain back kind of on everything. For instance, our great producer Sean Hall has already put the link in the chat for our event tonight. And we work in financial services. That's how we met. And in our firm, we work with bringing the information that is usually reserved for the wealthy. We are interested in bringing that to everyone, not just the affluent, but focusing on everyday people that are left behind. And in that regard, then we're realizing special needs families are left behind twice as much, especially if they're not, in fact, wealthy. So why don't we put together an initiative to do that? So we did, and we have events from time to time, but each one gets better because we continue to grow as individuals and in the process. And the one thing we realize is that when it comes to this event, which we're having tonight, which is going to be fantastic, and the show here, there's subtopics that we touch on each time. There's the financial piece. There's what does it mean to be a single parent raising a child with special needs? How do you love your children separately but equally when one is delayed or has a challenge and the other is neurotypical? But whether it's that, the financial services, all of those things come down to one simple thing, which is that we're all human beings and everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be understood. Everyone wants to know that they matter. So if you take into account just the human experience as a human being, we want to know that we matter, right? If you then add to that component, raising a child with special needs, as a parent, you're a protector. When you add the special needs component, the protector quotient goes up 10 times and then some. So you could forget about what you even automatically put aside. You're trying to make sure that your child or loved one is seen, heard, mattered, and understood. So in the process, you don't even realize that, wait a minute, do I matter? Am I seen? Am I heard? Am I understood? And through everything we talk about here today and what we're going to be talking about tonight, all of those things tie in. And that's really what all of this comes down to. That's what the human experience comes down to. And we can have different topics and different guests. I'm being here for 50 days in a row with no breaks. And we're both long-winded enough where that could take place. I'm giving you a good example of it right now. And I tell you, no matter what, it'll all still mean the same thing. I want to be heard. I want to be understood. I want to know that I matter and I want to love. And what happens is, with the special needs component, I'm noticing in a lot of the posts that I put up in some of these the groups that I belong to, and this is what we'll talk about tonight again, is that some people, depending on how they were raised, depending on the challenge that their loved one may be facing, they are so locked into the now and the moment that survival is of the very most that they can focus on. But we're always asking ourselves, like, what on earth about now? What about thriving now? We talk about, we're in financial services, so we're talking about, let's help prepare people for a world in which they exist only in memory for their children, because we're not going to be here forever. But the flip side of that, along with the financial instruments like life insurance, estate planning, and debts, and debt management and elimination and retirement and all that kind of stuff. What about not just getting by and being in a comfortable spot? What about being in a happy spot? What about thriving now when we're here? Because the other thing that does is, aside from any financial instrument, that gives our children a lesson and an example too.
For sure. I know, and as you and I chatted, earlier today, I find that we define ourselves sometimes by the relationships that we're in, right? We say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so and so's spouse, or I'm you're right. You belong to somebody or something, right? Sometimes when you're a
Right.
special needs parent, you kind of lose yourself occasionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get lost because you're in the day to day and to the caretaking, and you come second. I know. And by the way, one of the topics of some of our content that we're going to be producing and creating and involves relationships, and relationships can really suffer when it comes to families dealing with special needs issues, because because we can lose ourselves in the caretaking responsibilities, and forget that that as a couple, husbands and wives need to still forge their lives together and still move forward. And I remember, with my daughter, she was diagnosed with learning disabilities, and other issues, cognitive issues. At the same time that we were going through that process, and she was young, 18 months old, 2.5 years old, my father-in-law got very sick. And my father-in-law went from being a very vibrant member of society. It's a terrible thing to say, but like he was. I'll just tell you this: like, this is a great thing. He was the head baker at the Cheesecake Factory, like
Oh
the
wow.
factory. Yeah, the factory of the Cheesecake Factory. Like, he was the head bake. There was a cheesecake cake named after his mother. Like, he was the head. Yeah, my wedding cake was not a wedding cake. It was multiple layers of Cheesecake Factory cheesecake slices.
Wow.
Massive. It's fantastic. And he got sick. And he went from that to he had a debilitating disease where his brain atrophied, and he went from vibrant to catatonic in just a couple of years. And so,
Mm.
and my wife at the time still is an attorney, and a practice that required her to spend a lot of time and focus there. So between Jordan's care, father-in-law's care, our own businesses, and our own areas of focus for our careers,
Right.
our relationship was way, 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 way down at the bottom of the list. And we kind of forget those are the kinds of things, right? And going back to the point that you were making, that we're talking about today, people can lose themselves, and so oftentimes it's important that they be acknowledged, right? That people around them acknowledge them for, I'm gonna say, just for existing, in it initially just for existing, but really for the magic and the power that they bring. I think if you talk to anybody, right, Shawn, if I said to you, like, what do you love about your work? There's a lot of things that well, Shawn, what do you love about the work that you do? Let's just do this as an example. What do you love about the work that we do? Someone give me a couple of things that you love about the work
I
that we do.
I love I I love helping other people. I love who I become when I help other people, but I love who I become and who I can and continue to become uh, as as I help my family, as an example, and who my children see me become when doing that. And I love that it not only brings a sense of self fulfillment, but the potential to just bring peace of mind, particularly to my wife, because in terms of our dynamic as a team with regard to the family and everything, one of the reasons why I got into doing the work is because, to be honest, from the financial end of it, there's the potential to completely do that, where her time is completely her own, and those are all the paths that that we're on. But
But
and I know
so
it's a
that's
long, yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
Go
that's a
ahead.
good, so that's a good answer, right? Because some people would say, oh, I love the work because I get paid a lot of money, right? Or, we get paid well to do the job, right? Some people would say that, but your answer, I think, is exactly the point that I'm making. There's
Mm-hmm.
a self-acknowledgement
Mm-hmm.
of growth. There's your children acknowledge the work that you're doing. Your
Mm-hmm.
wife acknowledges the freedom that you're giving her because you've acknowledged that was something that she needed, right? So in a way, we often look at the work that we do, and some people would say, well, I get value out of it because I get paid a lot of money, or I get value out of it because I get recognized for the good work that I do. That, I would say, getting recognized for the work that you do, or getting recognized for the value that you bring, is probably the most important thing, and it makes the money secondary, right? For a lot of people, I would say a majority of people. And that goes back to the point. People want to be seen. They want to be gotten. Somebody go, I get you. I acknowledge you. I get who you are. And I think at the end of the day, no matter where you are, even if you've achieved some level of success, to have somebody say, oh, I know who you are. We joke about it all the time. I met, a mentor, and was a fairly successful business person. And I met somebody who I had a tremendous amount of respect for, and I stuck my hand out to shake his hand. And I said, hi, I just wanted to say hello, I'm Brian Altunian. And we've talked about this because for those of you who don't know who he is, Ed Milet is a, significant, was a significant factor in our financial services company that we're in. He's also a world-renowned public speaker, motivational speaker, business strategist, and social media icon these days. And it's phenomenal. And I went to introduce myself to Ed a couple of years ago. I stuck my hand out to introduce myself. We had communicated on social media a little bit, but he didn't know who the hell I was, right? He didn't know who I was from Adam, right? I stuck my hand out and said, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Brian Altunian. And he said, I know who you are. And I think that those are 5 words that no matter where you are in life, that's what people want to hear, right? I know who you are, as if your life matters enough for me to know who you are. Living with indifference and in obscurity is, I think, the thing that most people fear, right? That I'm just invisible. I go to work, nobody knows who I am, nobody knows my name, nobody pays attention to me, right? Obscurity is one of those things that most people, I think, is the biggest challenge that most people have to overcome. And so saying somebody says to you, I know who you are, it makes a huge difference. One of the things I love about the work that we do is that we really spend a lot of time on edification and making sure that, that the people who we work with, is why I would like to greet you when we start this thing off. And, I see you, Shawn, and that's, always a big thing, right? I see you. Those 3 words are phenomenal. I see you.
They are, because in most cases, meaningful. We don't see ourselves in the best or most accurate light.
For sure.
Usually that doesn't happen. And, there must be something to this in terms of the universe, the creator, whoever speaking, because I've heard 2 people in 2 different podcasts say this week that I wish, and they're each people that were financially independent and well-known. One of them actually came from, somebody else repeated it, and it originally came from Jim Carrey, the actor, and said, I wish that everyone could achieve fortune and fame and financial independence so that they would then realize that it really is not everything.
Right.
Because that's the only way that you would. Now, I have always known, felt within my heart, that I have everything but that per se. So I don't see myself having that happen and then being like, unfulfilled, because success and fulfillment are 2 different things. And so when you talk about personal development, you again tie in the special needs component. Personal development and fulfillment is twice as huge, because you right away, your job is to drop, fall on the sword, take the bullet. You're sacrificing yourself. And the idea, as you mentioned, about being seen and heard, or obscurity being the thing that people fear the most, it's so deep inside and so natural a fear that most people don't even realize that it's there, because they're so busy settling for what they have and where they are. And if someone comes from an environment like that to begin with, then they're raising a child with special needs, they're like, I should just be grateful. I should just be grateful. Not that you should be grateful and strive for more, but that you should just be grateful. And I have to admit, because of the work that we do with personal development and everything, I would struggle with that notion. But we're all human. I would have conversations with people where, you're talking about the importance of protection against loss of income and having something in place, wills, trust, special needs, trust, all that kind of stuff. What's going to happen when, you're no longer in this world and your child is an adult? And I've heard people say, oh my gosh, I worry about that all the time. But you know what? I can't do anything about that. I just have to focus on today. And my thought used to be, like, if you do nothing, you get nothing. How could you possibly say that? How could you possibly do that? But I don't know what that person's experience is. And there's something to be said for, I think there's certain basic things that are right or wrong, right? But there's a lot of other things that aren't necessarily right or wrong. They just are. And for some people, what is it's their experience. That's what they've known. And that's why we have to get guarded on our associations, and things like this are important. The people that tune in and we associate with and everything. Because check this out, the idea of, everybody's heard of different illnesses that are transmitted, especially right now with COVID and everything. But
Sure.
what has been around and has been exacerbated by COVID is what I would dare to refer to as emotionally transmitted diseases, which would be
Mm,
an ETD. And here's what I mean by that. First of all, you take the word disease, dis-ease, anything but ease. So you're talking about stress. You're talking about strife. You're talking about discomfort, not in terms of lifting up weights, but, constant agony, right? The greatest disease, dis-ease there is transmitted through emotion. So you take something like COVID, which is real. You take something like raising a child with special needs, which is real in terms of the stress that can come about and everything. But like everything, no matter how bad something is in itself, how bad it is in reality is determined by how we react to it. And if somebody
sure.
is making more of it and feeding it, that's not a bad thing, or even right or wrong. It just is based on that person's experience. And so we owe it to ourselves to continue to grow, to press forward, and make sure that we share with each other that which we learn. I think we could blow this show up to 50 million viewers and whatever have you, and each live to be 100 years old, no matter what. But I've fully accepted the fact that, you know what? The people that add the most value are those that, not those that say, here's what I know, here's what you must do. If you want to get so and so, you should do such and such. You've got to do blah, blah, blah. What carries a lot more weight is, I don't have all the answers. Here's what I've figured out so far. Here's what's worked for me. And I'll continue to share with you what I know as I go along.
Sure. Sure. I think about, I think the people who are constantly on a path to evolve, constantly on a path to find the answers. I don't know. I think a lot of people, are trying to find the answer to the to the question of what's all about, what does it all mean, why are we here? But I
Yeah.
think that just breaking it down into some basics, you know, I remember a long time ago hearing Billy Crystal do an interview, and he had some success and Academy Award nomination, hosting the Academy Awards. And I remember the interviewing asking him, like, what's the thing that you need now? What's the thing that is missing for you? Or like, what's next? Like, you've succeeded in so many areas of your life. What's the next thing for you? And he stopped and thought about it for a second. And he said, one day I just want my dad to tell me he's proud of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking that, like, so powerful. And, to your point that you were making, Tony Robbins tells the story a lot about Robin Williams and how loved around the world Robin Williams is. And he does a lot on his live, his live Unleash the Power Within. He's done it on, you can see it on YouTube. When he asks people the question, how many people here loved Robin, not just liked Robin Williams, but loved Robin Williams. And then as people raise their hand, he says, I noticed all over the world how many people said that they just absolutely loved Robin. How can you not love Robin Williams, right? And then he died by suicide. And there's, to your point, the difference between being successful and being fulfilled, right? And what is the thing that's missing for folks in that search for fulfillment, right? And sometimes it is just acknowledgement. Again, I'm a middle child, right? I live in the world of, like, I never get acknowledged, right? But the reality is, right, when you go through, everybody has their own dynamic, right? This thing that you search
Yeah.
for, that you seek, or that you hope that you have, is that somebody acknowledges you for something. So that's the filter by which I see the world. But I do think that, when you're looking for fulfillment, it doesn't necessarily have to come in the form of how many houses you own, or how much stuff you've accumulated, or how much money you've got in the bank, but the impact that you have on the world, or again, your parent telling you they're proud of them, or acknowledging the work that you're doing and the commitment that you have to making a difference in the world. And I've posted a lot of stuff recently, and I know we'll talk about the stuff that you're working on, because I'm fascinated by your journey that you're on right now too. But I posted stuff recently about just being cognizant of the difference that we're making in the world. And I think if two things to that. If you ask people, to be, if you tell somebody about miracles and they don't believe in miracles, and you said that, you're just not paying attention. Like, look for miracles around you. You can find miracles around you. And similarly, are you making a difference in the world? And what are you doing today that makes a difference in the world? Similarly, like, if you find that the work that you're doing, or you consciously choose to do something that makes a difference in the world, you're going to make a difference in the world. And so for me, that's a big thing. Like, where can I make a difference in somebody else's life, and how can I make a contribution? And that's my personal journey. And as you know, I talk about empathy and love, especially right now with some of the divisiveness that occurs here in the United States, and we're seeing it around the world as well. But with this election and social issues, and now COVID forcing us to be home and think about how we're interacting with the world, that making a difference in the world and other people's lives is something that can be a challenge for folks. But I always put it out there as, can you make a difference in people's lives? That's me. That's my thing. That's something I'm looking for. I think we do that with this show. I think we do that with the work that we do in the financial services world, and dealing with our special needs families. And it comes from a place, which is, you are on a path this month. You've set out a project for yourself, which I love, and I total respect for you. And I post, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm there. So tell people what you're doing. Some of those folks that follow our show follow you on social media, so they know. But talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's simple. And speaking of people following, I want to acknowledge somebody else that just checked in. Miss Anya Sebastian. Anya is also from where I hail, from the U.S. Virgin Islands. And if you notice, anybody from the Virgin Islands that tunes in when they say good afternoon, that's not just being polite. That's a way of life. So when you see people on the street, or you enter someone's home, you don't say hello. You say good afternoon. You say good morning. And what is odd enough is, you enter the home, you say good evening, which is what people usually say as you're leaving. That's just the way we were raised. And believe it or not, that is one of the things that carries a constitution within me about being certain about who I am, where I come from, and who I come from. And that being said, even with that, there is still deficiencies that some of us have. And because I'm a person that doesn't strike you as lacking confidence or certainty or anything like that, the areas where I lack them are very well hidden, maybe even so to me. So over the years, I've developed what we refer to as conscious, not conscious thinking, critical thinking. In other words, thinking about what you're thinking about. Because if you don't think about what you're thinking about, you're just run by the thought, and it's autopilot. Like, you pull into your driveway, and if you've had a busy enough day, you'd be like, I don't even really remember how I got here. I just know where to go. So in thinking about who I am, what I think about, and those kind of things, I first of all thought, it was kind of just like a spur of the moment. You know what? I'm just going to be vulnerable. Like you mentioned Ed Milet earlier. Ed is a very masculine, testosterone-y kind of guy, whatever have you. And over the years, his transparency and his vulnerability have increased. And as a result, I find myself more relating to that. I find it more relating. I find other people relating to me more. So in an effort to a cathartic process, which serves as therapy, and at the same time connect with other people, I decided to launch something called the Vulnerability Project, which is where we're now in day 15 of 30 days, in which each day I will post about something that I am going to choose to be vulnerable about. Sometimes I know a day or two ahead. Sometimes I don't know till that very minute. And what happens is, some of them, I'm kind of like, and even the special needs thing, when we're talking about challenges that come with raising a child with special needs, as human beings, we master the art of complication. There's some cases where I'm like, am I exploiting my child by mentioning some of the challenges that we're going through? Is it about me, or is it about his challenge? and you can
Yeah.
overthink it. So you do have to think of how you do that. And I always say that I don't believe in, people usually go to one of two extremes. They either post a bunch of things that they have, do, or have accomplished on social media. So like a watch, a car, a house, something, and it's meant to be positive. Or they go the other route and they will tell you about every single solitary challenge that they have. And there's several problems with that. One, it brings about a certain amount of just, all it is worry, and all it does is attract more of it. And so I didn't want to post any challenges unless I could post about how I got through them as well. In other words, here's what I went through, and to actually redefine what it means to go through something. To go through it doesn't mean that it happens. It means that I actually went through it to get to the other side, to have some kind of success after the challenge has, made itself
That,
there.
and I know you have a list of things, so I don't want to take you totally off track, but why? Why not post, I'm vulnerable about this and I haven't gotten a solution to it yet? I'm just curious why you
Well,
feel that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying I haven't found a solution to it yet, but
Yeah.
provided that I'm going to tell you I haven't found a solution to it yet, but I know that I will. Look forward to seeing it once I get it, because
Yeah.
what you think about, you bring about. So if all I'm telling you is here's what I've got, here's what's going on, why should I expect anything else to take place? Put it this way: when we're born, we're as close to perfect as we will ever be. We don't care about anybody else's race. We don't care about what we can or can't do. If you run and you fall and you bust your knee, break a limb, you're going to get up, heal, and keep going. Literally. When you figuratively fall as you get older, because there's people who love you and who would take a bullet for you that tell you no, eventually you start running just a little slower, then you run a little less, then you just flat out walk, and you don't really take much chances. So as you become an adult, if all you're doing is talking about just your problems, not even raising a hand, does anybody have a solution? So then that's all you bring about. So if I'm going to tell you I've got a problem, I don't have the answer, I should say, does anybody have any pointers if I'm that desperate? Or I should say, I'm going to keep you posted as I find the solution, because I'm going to focus on the
Yeah.
solution than, versus the problem. And it's so easy to do the other. But I found that more people are like, I can relate to that, but I still struggle with it, because every now and then I'm like, because I've had a couple things that I begin to post and I'm like, I don't know about that one. Vulnerable is vulnerable, because, but you don't want to just,
There's
you
part
just
of me
want
that wants to go, wait, like what? Like what? Tell us. No, I don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. But there's a part of me that's like what, Sean? I want to hear it. I'm not
well,
I'm not like in a weird way, but sort of
no,
like
because
amused.
I know it breeds suspense, but some of them, but like for instance, the one that I'm going to post tomorrow is so ridiculously simple, but it's stupid, but has value. So when the image alone, how do you go, what does that have to do with anything? But when you see what it's tied to, you'll go, all right, that makes sense. And I found this past week people responding in ways, especially on some of the special needs pages and groups, that are saying, you know, I needed to hear this. Thank you for posting this. And they're thanking me. And I'm like, no, no, no. I need to thank you, because you've done something for me, by letting me know that it resonated with you. Because
Yeah.
you have to remember too, you're closed off to an extent raising a special needs child. So depending on your background and your experiences, the amount will vary, but there's always a certain amount of, nobody knows my situation. Just nobody knows what I'm
Yeah.
going through. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Take that and increase the severity of the child's condition. There's even more of that than taking place. The nobody knows. Nobody knows. Now you add a pandemic to it, and you're literally behind closed doors, and you're really thinking nobody knows. Nobody knows, and you can tell by people's posts that they're just like, I'm just venting because I know that nobody knows. And then when you take a moment to tell them, here's what I'm going through, and I'm posting it, but I'm here to let you know we're all going through these different things. You're letting somebody know that they're not alone, and then you're reminding yourself as well. And so those things just bring some kind of synergy. And because at the end of the day, we have more in common than we do, otherwise. It's just a big
For
facade
sure.
that's taking place, So that's just a
But by the way,
reminder.
it goes back to the original point, which is I see you. You're
Mm-hmm.
not alone. I see you. I'm
Yeah.
acknowledging that you're through it, I'm going through something similar. We're doing this together, and so it goes back to the same thing, ultimate, the drive, the need to be gotten, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
One thing
yeah,
I wanted to add, that I usually wait till the end of the show to give thanks to um, the women of my life, meaning my mom and my wife Laura. So I have to give thanks to Laura at this point because this goes back to what we were talking about before in terms of what are your solutions. You're just focusing on your problems. Um, as you know, as many people may know, boys produce less melatonin than girls. So a boy on the autism spectrum, more so than a girl, will have sleeping challenges. Not that a girl can't, but it's more prevalent in boys. And every now and then, Elijah will have these rock star sleeping cycles. And as you knew, there were past couple of weeks where he was going to bed at like
4 and 5 in the
3,
morning.
4, 5 in the morning. And one morning he literally went to bed at 7:30 a.m. And on some of those days, I've taken the road warrior mentality, which is like, okay, what time you went to bed? I'm getting up at 5 o'clock and I'll get my workout on. And on those days when I do that, by like 5 or 6 o'clock, my body is still like, you gonna get your workout on? Well, I'm gonna get my tired on right now and I'll make you feel it to remind you. So those
Yeah,
were challenges that I posted. But to Laura's credit, after we had an appointment, a teledoc appointment with a therapist who went through a battery of questions with us about maybe 2 weeks ago. And then, as usual, Laura just thought, well, you know what? What if I, using the app that comes with the router, just cut off the Wi-Fi at a certain time? Because what she had done is change the time on his iPad, and he went around and checked all the devices. The kid is so freaking smart. He's like, that's not the right time, and he just stayed on there anyway. But
wow,
then she didn't just turn it off, but then she started telling him, hey, it goes out at such and such a time. And the first night, it was really, really rough. And you know what the impetus for it was? This is how things can happen to you and not for you. About a month ago, I think you remember, we had a blackout on our street that lasted about 12, maybe 15 hours, something like that.
yeah,
And a transformer had went out. And so the
right,
LA Department of Water and Power had come out and they were working on the transformer on the street. And I asked them, what's the ETA? They said probably like 7, 8 more hours. And we're like, oh my gosh. So there was no light and there was no electricity. And he was so upset. I took him out there, mask and all, to the street to see them working on it. And I said, see, we have to thank the men for doing their job. And he was like, okay. And he understood and he went to sleep. So that's what she thought back. She was like, wait a minute. If the Wi-Fi is just out
interesting.
and if he knows it's going to be out. So what she did is she started telling him it goes off at 1 a.m. Right. So we didn't get drastic and just, so she goes off at 1 and he's like,
Sure.
okay. Then she went from 1 to midnight, letting him know that it goes off. And so he's adjusted to it somewhat. So again, if I'm gonna post a problem, I might as well be sharing about a solution, and that's those things that help people, and that's how we end up. We're all in one big room, which is the earth, and everybody.
Yeah.
Every now and then, somebody raises their hand, is like, "I got a plumbing issue. Does anybody know about such and such?" And that's how service to others is the rent we pay for our room on earth, as said by the great Muhammad
Right.
Ali.
Right. For sure. Well, I think, again, all of these factors, come into play as we choose the work that we do and the time that we spend in service of others and, to pay that rent. And I think, for me, I had spent a lot of time in corporate jobs and working for, different sized companies. And I guess I thought pretty early on in that whole mix that I really wasn't making a contribution to society. It really wasn't a contribution. I mean, I was working and trying to get a good job, and titles were important back then. I'd gotten my MBA, and so having an education and doing something with my MBA, partially so my parents who never got graduate degrees, and actually neither of my parents actually graduated or we even went to college. So I had to kind of prove, that the MBA was worth something, even though I paid for it myself. So I had to do something with my MBA and take that corporate job. Like I was proving to
Right.
somebody else that was worth it. It wasn't really making a contribution. I love the work that we do in the financial services arena because every conversation I have I focus on bringing value, and I do a check-in. Like, was this valuable to you? Did we cover the things that you wanted to cover? Did we answer the
Right.
questions that you had? But I'm conscious of bringing value, and I know that when I hear some of my favorite conversations in the work we do in the financial services arena. This is for folks that don't know. We'll sit with a family or sit with an individual and answer some specific questions that they have about their own personal financial situation. But in most cases, 99% of the cases, we'll actually gather their information together and do a real financial needs analysis. I always say we set we're like the GPS of financial services, right? Where are you today? Where do you need to go? And let's help you build a roadmap to get there. Avoid the potholes, avoid the traffic, avoid construction. Get there in the shortest time possible. In some cases, it will change your time frame and maybe help you get there earlier. Get out from under student loan debt or get out from under credit card debt. Help you get to your goals earlier. And I've had so many people whose response to me has been, "Oh my God, I didn't even know this was possible," or "Oh my God, I never heard about any of this stuff, and this is all new to me, and I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful." So I get a lot of those kinds of and it's not like I try to get that output. Although I will think about that. If you whatever job you have, right? If your goal was like, I want this person to be like, "Oh my God, that was so great!" Like if that was the end result that you were going for, man, you would give it everything you possibly could, right? Not
Yeah.
overwhelm them with too much information, but make sure that you're listening, taking in the information, and giving them the answers that they're searching for, and providing them with solutions that they can grasp and that they can get. And hopefully at the end, you get them to go, "Oh my God, this was so great. I'm so valuable." It's one of the things I love about the work that we do. Forgetting the stuff I did in corporate America, forgetting about even having an MBA, forgetting about any of that stuff, just being of service to somebody who was like, I had no idea. Or my other favorite is like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe when they say this, I can't believe we've been here an hour and 20 minutes. I felt like it was 15 minutes, right?" Or I
Right.
know that we're doing something good and something valuable. To me, that's the goal that I shoot for. I want to make sure I'm adding value, and I want them to be blown away by the information that has them feel empowered. And I think that the work that
Hmm.
we do, because of the people that you and I are, just two dads, and our awareness of the world around us as it relates to our experience with our children who have special needs issues, because it really is a different perspective on the world. I think we bring a lot of value. And I'm not saying that people who don't have special needs family members don't bring value. Obviously, everybody who searches brings value. But that's why I love doing this with you, because I know who you are, right? You have this massive heart, and you just want to make a difference in somebody else's life. And so, anyways, I'm just going on. Today
No,
I'm
no,
feeling
you.
very thankful, for what
No,
that you do.
I feel the same way. You touched on something going back to, again, vulnerability. So the way the financial services industry works is that it focuses on helping the affluent and the wealthy, and the word "help" carries a very loose definition because they have quotas to meet. The advisor represents one company, which means at
Right,
some point he has to ask, "Am I going to look out for the person that I'm sitting in front of, or the family that I have at home?" And the way that we work
right,
is that we have Fortune 500 companies that are our clients. We have wealthy families that are clients, and then you have small to mid-sized businesses as well as single parents and young couples. And to go out and do that, and to dare to do that and make a difference, takes a certain amount of carrying to the point of shield or armor, because you have to be able to, because if you care about people, you have to have the wherewithal to deal with people questioning your motives if that ever comes about. And if you're not certain of your own motives, well, and even if when you are, that can kind of hurt. So when you then add a special needs component to that, an environment
yeah,
where people are twice as 5 times as likely to protect themselves, your armor better be twice as thick. And so it's one of the reasons why I am thankful for this, because it's allowed me to grow in that regard. Because in the beginning, I've been with the firm 14 years. This initiative is less than half that old, because I spent some time going, you know what? I don't want anybody thinking I'm trying to get something from them. What if they think that I'm up to something? What if and if you know that you're not, but yet you're still wondering what someone might think, that has something to do with your confidence within yourself. And if you're a good person, you worry about quote unquote the good things. You don't want anybody to misread what you're saying. And what I came to accept is whether you're an atheist, whether you're Buddhist, Muslim, whoever, both Muhammad and Jesus Christ had the best of intentions, and people question their motives. And I
Yeah.
am neither in any way, shape, or form, right? So if their motives are questioned, who am I to think that mine won't be? Not to mention,
Right.
if you dare to do anything remotely great at all, if you don't want your motives questioned, then don't do anything.
For sure.
You know? Yeah.
It's funny you said that. I used to play basketball. I know you probably find that hard to believe, short Jewish guy playing basketball, but I used to play basketball with a bunch of short Jewish guys. And there was a whole group of us that we used to play weekly, 4-on-4. So let's, in a small gym. So, just to be
Yeah.
just full disclosure. And we used to play every week, and they were intense games. And really, I just went for the sweat, right? It wasn't like there was no NCAA superstar coming out of this group of schlubs.
Right.
Um, but I remembered a few years ago, it was a game that I wasn't at, and one of our guys was a fairly well-known chef in the Los Angeles area, a little heavy-set guy, about 58 years old. He had come to play basketball with his two teenage boys, 16 and 17. And now this guy, by the way, is your stereotypical chef, heavy-set, not the most mobile. And so he used to rebound right under the basket, and he used to take the short shots, right? And this, as the story goes, because I wasn't there to witness it firsthand, but he ended the first game. We played multiple games, over the course of the night. He
Right.
took a 3-point shot and made it, and carried on to win the game, by the way, and carried on like a complete lunatic. Absolute, like, complete lunatic. So much so that the guys on the losing side were like, shut up already. Like, we got it. Big deal. You made the shot. Good for you. And they said he went off into the corner of the gym and was carrying on. And then, they heard like a big bang on the ground. And they're like, all right, dude, enough. Stop with the noise. Easy, relax. And he had collapsed. And a couple of guys were like, hey, man, are you fooling around or what are you doing? Like, what's going on? And he started to have a seizure. And
I
they went
remember
over to
that.
check on him. Yeah, remember this? And he had a seizure, and they called 911. And we were at this University High School, which is in West Los Angeles, and getting like from the main driveway into where the gym was. It's quite an ordeal. And so they called 911, and they got the ambulance to come. And by the time they finally made their way down, and they tried to do a little CPR on him, and then they loaded him up into the ambulance and took him to the hospital, and he got into the hospital, and then and the whole team followed. Like everybody who played that night went to the hospital, and they're all surrounded these sweaty, smelly guys. And he died. He died that night in front of his two boys, and in front of his wife, and in front of his entire group of guys that would play basketball with. And that's like, by the way, we're all about the same age, within 4 or 5, maybe 6 or 7 years, maybe. And I'm in this business where we care for people's financials, financial lives, and look at things like life insurance. And, that's a critical thing. And I remember saying, to your point, I posted to everybody, like, guys, like, this could have been any of us, right? So wherever you are, whether you do it with me or anybody else, it doesn't matter, but make sure that you've
You
got
get
some life
protected.
insurance in place, right?
Yeah.
He was not the breadwinner in the family. The wife was the breadwinner in the family, but he did not have life insurance. And it became a massive financial burden on her. She has 2 teenage boys, and her job was enough, to support him being a chef and doing his thing. But now without him, completely changed her world. And I got immediate backlash from folks, guys who
That
I
had
didn't
to
know
hurt.
as well. And this, to your
Yeah.
point that you were saying, like, hey, I can't believe you're being opportunistic about this guy's death. And I'm like, I'm absolutely not being. If, like, I feel horrible as it is that I've never said to you, by the way, I'm in this field. I already feel horrible that he wasn't covered, because this is my field. But I would feel even worse if now, after having this experience, you guys didn't have anything in place because this is the work that I do. I do this stuff. And it was significant backlash. Like, and I said, listen, let me just explain. This is not for personal financial gain. In fact, any commission that I'm to get on, if you guys decide to do a life insurance policy with me, I'm going to donate it to his widow. I'm going to give her the money. It's not for me. It's not my, I'm not, this is not my, it's not about selling you something. That's where I think people get challenged, right? When, to your point, right? You know, we're not being exploitative and we're not being opportunistic. We're being realistic. And we're imagine if you had something that you know could have a huge impact on somebody else's life and you didn't share it with them. First of all, how do you think they would feel about it? Man, you've been selling life insurance and you never told me about the fact that you never pulled me aside and go, hey, Schmo, get some life insurance to protect your family in case something happens, right? That's the kind of thing where I looked at it, I was like, you know, I took that very personally too. This was, you know, it was a few years ago. I took that very personally and thought,
you would, anybody would, because especially because of where you're coming from. You're coming from a good place, and to have that questioned in that regard, that stings. That has to hurt. And
it shows kind of how cynical people are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? Right? That's what it means to be a soldier of love. That's not like some catchy, earthy, whatever. That's just the truth. It means that, you know, the greatest strength is the kind that is within you, not outside, and you have to have a certain amount of it inside you to do good things. You know, doing good things doesn't come without obstacle, and obstacles may come, or more than likely gonna come, from the very people you are willing to do it for. I have an appointment coming up with a lady that I began communicating with, and she reached out and she says, I have a policy that is, and I might have told you this story. I have a policy that is a handful of years old. She has a child that is on the spectrum, and she says that her agent had passed away. And I said, well, you know what? Let's take a look at what you have and see. And then she didn't need this reassurance, but I told her. She said, I don't know if I should be getting something else. I don't know if I have enough. I just don't know what I have, and they're taking the money out every month. And then I don't think she needed the reassurance. I think I had some trust with her, but I told her, I said, well, take a look at what you have, and I should let you know. I wouldn't even begin to touch what you have, add anything to it, or do anything at all if what you have already serves you. So I want to give you that peace of mind from the very beginning. She says, I appreciate that so much. And then she tells me that when the agent passed away,
passed away.
Yes, the agent passed away. And when the agent, because she can't reach out to the agent to figure out what's going on, and the actual company hasn't been the most receptive. And at the same time, she's just busy. She knows she has something in place, so she's not losing sleep over it. But she'd like to know what she has. Does she have enough? But she told me a story that she had a conversation with the agent when the agent was ill, essentially on their deathbed, and that the agent was tremendously remorseful and crying with worry, not about their illness, but about the fact that despite the fact that they had been in the industry for years, they had nothing in place for themselves.
Wow.
And they had children. And she obviously, they obviously couldn't get anything at that point in time. So that's the other thing about the way the industry works. There is no real push for anyone to become a product of the product and make sure that they're taking the advice that they're giving. From an integrity standpoint, that's huge. If you came to buy a Toyota from me at my Toyota lot, and I drove off, you see me drive off the lot with something else at the end of the day, you're wondering, well, how good does he really think that is? It's like trying to sell shoes barefoot. It's like coming into my restaurant and asking me what my favorite item is on the menu, only for me to say, I mean, I don't eat here, but you should. It just, and so that carries some weight, and so somebody had to, who knows, maybe no one wanted to risk someone thinking they were opportunistic, telling them that they should get themselves taken care of as well. We are each other's keeper to a very certain extent.
Yeah, and I think that this is the thing for anybody who's seeing us for the first time or hearing us for the first time. The reason why we do the presentations like we're going to do tonight at 6:30 Pacific time, we're going to do a presentation for special needs community, talk about financial concepts and opportunities to improve your financial life. That we come from this community, and you and I joke about it all the time. It's a community that we didn't volunteer to join, right? As parents of children who have special needs issues, right? We're members by circumstance. In some cases, some people are members by urgency or emergency or age. Some people age into special needs issues, early onset of Alzheimer's and that type of thing, where you need help, right? The definition, by the way, we talk about things like long-term care. The definition of long-term care is when you need help doing 2 of the 5 or 6 daily activities of life, right? Like feeding yourself, getting dressed, getting up in the morning, going to the bathroom, right? Walking, some basic. So if you need help with 2 of those things, then you qualify for long-term care. Well, I have news for you. If you need help doing any of those things, you need special needs. You need special attention. You need special support.
Now
So
tell them what the average age is for the person that needs that.
What is the average age?
While I don't know the number,
I was thinking, you know the number specifically?
Yeah, it's, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but
I think it's a huge percentage before age 65.
Absolutely, it is. It may even be before 50, because when you think of long-term care, you think of, oh, grandpa fell and broke a hip and that kind of thing. But no, the age is it's somewhere between 45 and 55. That's the average age for a need for long-term care.
That's right. So we come from this community. We speak to this community as members, but also as folks who service families in this community. Tonight, I think we're both doubly excited because we have a special guest partner this evening. A lovely woman who we've had on our show as a guest, who is a special need. She's a life coach for families with special needs. And it's funny, every time I've mentioned that to somebody who's in the special needs community, they're like, oh my God, how brilliant, right? So Susanna Peace Lavelle is going to be our special guest tonight. And I'm thrilled to have her. And I'm thrilled that this platform that you and I have created, Shawn, with our partner, Shawn Hall, has created opportunity for other folks who are servicing this community to partner with us and share the contributions that they make to the world. I think what started out as just a conversation between I joke about it. I call us these 2 idiot dads who were like, we're just talking about our kid, blah, blah, blah. But it's really, I think what this has turned into is something really special, and I'm honored to be part of this. And I think tonight's presentation with Susanna and you, I think is going to be a special, powerful one. I hope that people who are seeing this before 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, December 2nd, by the way, just give people some grounding of where we are. It's Wednesday, December 2nd. If you see this before 6:30, we hope that I think Shawn Hall probably put it already
He did.
In the chat. He's already put the comments, a link to registering to be part of this Zoom. We try to make sure that we don't open it up to the world, so we don't have people who are being exploitative of the platform to come in. We try to manage the folks that are invited there are seeing the presentation, and so hopefully you'll join us tonight, because I think it's going to be a special evening. I think it's going to be we're going to add tremendous value, and I'm grateful to be in partnership with you on this.
Thank you so much, and it is going to be special. So we're talking about like it's a financial workshop, and it's not accurate to say that it's not that, because we're going to talk about financial concepts, how money can work for you as opposed to the other way around, how you can make the most out of what you already earn additional, protect the income that you have right now against loss, dealing with retirement, debt elimination, whether it's credit card debt, student debt, or tax debt, estate planning, wills and trusts, all of those things. But those things are but a piece of what it means to just build a better quality of life altogether. So that's why Susanna, who is also a single mom to a child with several diagnoses, including autism, is going to talk about finding purpose, working in flow, all of those very things. And rather than just throw the concepts at you, we're going to try and give you the idea of like, look, what if you're able to like dream again? what are some of the things that you put aside because of your situation trying to raise someone that has special needs? And then going back to, as you said earlier, redefining what special needs means. Everyone knows someone, or should they live to a certain age, will become a member of the special needs community. In some cases, some people may do that temporarily, depending on a condition or something that they have. So if you're raising, you're helping someone that's elderly and needs your help, then you should attend. If you care about people and like to get some good information, then you should attend. If you earn $1 and pay taxes, then you should attend. If you want any bit of information that could stand a chance to make your life just that much better or give you a shot at it, especially in the middle of this pandemic, then you should attend. It's free. The link is in the chat. We'll be there this evening at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. And as we get ready to close out, I just want to, again, Brian, I thank you. I think this hour has gone by faster than everyone beforehand.
It's great.
And I think it has
so
something to do
quickly.
with maybe tonight. But I want to thank Robert Moorhead for joining us all the way from the U.S. Virgin Islands, as always, my good friend, and Anya Sebastian, who, again, is from the Virgin Islands. Thank you so much. And I think this is her first time listening. And, as Brian mentioned, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and at least 4 or 5 other outlets, and they continue to grow. And that's because of those of you who take the time to tune in or watch us. And again, I wouldn't be here if it were not for my mother, quite literally, and then my wife, Laura, who is a warrior at heart and means everything to me. And just remember that there's somebody out there, somebody that needs to know that you care. Somebody needs to know that they matter, and somebody needs to know that they're seen. And it doesn't matter how long it takes for you to do that. Just make sure you take a minute to do that. And if you're watching us, thank you, and we love you.
We love you. Thank you, Sean Hall, as always. Thank you, John Francis. I love you, my friend.
Thank you.
To spending an hour with you tonight at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. Hope you all join us.
Right back at you. Yep, and thank you, Sean Hall.